Good morning, PT on Ice Daily Show. Happy Thursday morning. Hope your day is off to a great start. We're here on the PT on Ice Daily Show presented by the Institute of Clinical Excellence, the only daily PT podcast. Happy to have you here live if you're on YouTube or Instagram or joining us wherever you get your podcasts. My name is Alan. I'm happy to be your host today, currently serving as the Chief Operating Officer here at ICE and a lead faculty in our fitness athlete division. Here on Thursdays, we talk all things leadership, business ownership, practice management, that sort of thing. Also on Thursdays, most importantly, it is Gut Check Thursday, our weekly functional fitness workout. This week's Gut Check Thursday is an ascending ladder, starting with 100 meters on a row, and then moving to a box and doing 10 box step-ups. Everybody step into a 20-inch box this week. Guys are going to have a 45-pound barbell back racked. Ladies are going to have a 35-pound barbell back racked. And then after that, we're moving to 200 meters on the row, 20 step-ups, 300 meters on the row, 30 step-ups, so on and so forth. You have a 15-minute window to get through the round of 500 meters on the row and 50 of those step-ups. If you do get through that round of 550, any remaining time in that 15-minute clock, you're going to go back on the rower and get as many meters on the rower as you can, and your score is that max distance row. So the goal is to get through that 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 complex and have some time to get back to the rower. I tested this workout Tuesday night. I used the ski machine. I think I got like 50 meters on the ski. So it's definitely pushing the pace to try to finish that in 15 minutes and get back on the machine for some distance. So have fun with Gut Check Thursday. Courses coming away from ICE. We're nearing the end of the year. We're nearing the holidays. We have just a month of live courses left, and then our final cohorts for our online courses are beginning over the next couple of weeks. So live courses coming your way. Your next chance to catch us on the road is going to be the weekend of November 5th and 6th. You can join Lindsay Huey out in Windsor, Colorado for extremity management. You can join Justin Dunaway down in Orlando, Florida for total spine thrust. We have 5 courses that weekend, but the other 3 are sold out. So then your next chance is the weekend of 12 to 13 November. You can join Mitch down in Baton Rouge for Fitness Athlete Live, or Zach Long out in Bellingham, Washington for Fitness Athlete Live. You can join Paul down at Onward, Tennessee and Nashville for upper quadrant dry needling. Join the older adult crew in Oshkosh, Wisconsin for older adult live, or down in St. Mary's, Georgia for older adult live. Extremity management will be out in Ames, Iowa. And Rehab of the Injured Runners last course of the year will be out in Golden, Colorado with Megan Peach. The weekend before Thanksgiving, November 19th and 20th, you can join Mark out in Asheville, North Carolina for extremity management, or Zach Morgan in Glencoe, Maryland for cervical management. And then our last live courses of the year will be the weekend of December 3rd and 4th. Mitch will be out in Santa Barbara for Fitness Athlete Live. Paul will be up in Milwaukee at Onward Milwaukee for lower quadrant dry needling. We'll have Jordan Berry at Charlotte, North Carolina at Onward Charlotte for lumbar spine management, or Zach Morgan in Cincinnati for lumbar spine management. And finally, we'll have Justin Dunaway at Onward Philadelphia in Paoli, Pennsylvania. Those will be our final courses of the year. The weekend before Christmas, December 8th through the 13th, we're taking the whole crew to Puerto Rico for a company vacation. So we'll not have any live courses the weekend before Christmas. Obviously, we'll be off for Christmas and New Year's, and we'll kick things off the first weekend of January after New Year's. If you can't join us live over the next month or so, if you're busy with the holidays, we do have some online classes starting. We have persistent pain management and primary care physical therapy starting their last cohorts of the year on Halloween on Monday, October 31st. And then we have fitness athlete, pregnancy and postpartum starting November 1st. That will be next Tuesday with Christine and Alexis. And then your last chance to catch Essential Foundations for fitness athlete for quite some time is coming up November 7th with Mitch, myself, Guillermo, and Kelly. That kicks off November 7th. That's going to be our last cohort until March. That cohort will run until the beginning of January. And then we're taking about a 6 to 8 week break because I will be on paternity leave. My wife is expecting our baby on January 13th. So we'll not be teaching any online courses for the first couple months of the year. So if you've been looking to get into Fitness Athlete Essential Foundations, make sure you jump into the November 7th cohort and get in before we take a break until the spring. So that's what's coming your way from ICE. Let's talk about today's topic. Today's topic, we're talking about error positivity. This concept comes from this book, wonderful book. I recommend you read it. If you're watching on video, it's probably turned around. It's probably the wrong way. But the book is called Turn the Ship Around. I wasn't very creative with the title for today's episode. It is by Captain David Marquette. He is a Navy submarine captain. Wonderful book. I highly recommend this. If you are all consider yourself a leader, I recommend that you read this book. Talks a lot about kind of military leadership and how military leadership is revolved around competing with other members of the same rank to make less errors and do more work than your peers to get promoted. A large number of people competing for a fixed number of slots. So competing, backstabbing people, basically everything gone wrong with leadership is how, at least in this book, in the early 90s military in the Navy, how things ran and how he turned not only his own submarine around, but also Navy and military leadership as a whole through the concept of error positivity. So highly recommend you read that book, but we're going to touch on some of the points from that book and also expand upon them. So the first thing, I want to talk about 5 concepts today. The first concept is talking about and acknowledging that errors do happen. Errors will happen. We are all, unfortunately, human. We will make mistakes. We will make errors. We will make them throughout the day, all day, every day, for the rest of our life to some degree. Now, we might get better at turning big errors into small errors. We might reduce the frequency of our errors, but we're going to make some errors, right? Typos in an email, small error, happens very frequently. Double booking a patient, doesn't happen very frequently. A moderate error, large error, turning left on a red light and causing a fender bender, very large error. Nonetheless, we make errors throughout our day. And it's important to acknowledge that those are going to happen and that they're unavoidable. No amount of punishment, of reward systems, anything we try to put into place is going to completely resolve human error. And we just have to wrap our mind around that and accept it, that small to big, we're going to make errors every single day. But we need to step back and ask ourselves, what was the result of that error? Did somebody come to physical harm? For most of our errors, for about 99% of our errors, the answer is no. Nobody was physically harmed. Maybe we did cause a fender bender. Maybe we did cause some physical harm. But a typo in an email, while the person might get a little twitch in their eye seeing your typo, while they might think less of you as a person, they did not come to any actual physical harm. The second question we need to ask, and more importantly in practice ownership and management, and in physical therapy in general and how we practice with our patients, is did somebody come to financial harm? Did I miss something in my evaluation and I've been seeing this person for 6 months and they're not getting better? You could make the argument that that person came to financial harm, right? You have wasted their time and money. Double booking that patient, that person came to financial harm if they showed up and you can't see them and they drove and spent gas money to come see you and now you turn them away. That person did come to financial harm. So mostly with errors, there is no really big end result as far as what happened downstream from the error. There can be some minor issues, and those issues are mostly financial. So step back, ask yourself, what is the end result of this error? Did somebody come to physical or financial harm? If the answer is no, you really have to ask yourself, was it that big of a deal? And for a lot of folks, it turns out that it's not that big of a deal, and they just need to accept that, right? Now we come to the second part. If we've accepted that errors happen, if we learn to recognize what errors are small, what errors are big, if errors have caused physical or financial harm, what are we going to do about those errors? And now a lot of folks here will turn to a reactive style of leadership and try to punish those errors. We see this happen all the time in all walks of life, not just in our PT clinics or our practice. We see that punishment happens when errors occur. All of us can relate to school sports where if we were late or we lost a game, we ran sprints, we did burpees. You may go to a CrossFit gym where if you're late to class, you do X number of burpees for every minute that you're late. You do some sort of physical punishment. Maybe you had a job where if you messed up, it was your job that night to clean the toilets or mop the floor. We see a lot of physical punishment coming down on errors. We also see financial punishment. We see if you made an error that messed something up that caused the business financial harm or the customer, that somehow we're going to take that money out of your pay. We're going to make you work late to make up for the errors that you messed up and the work that you botched. If you were supposed to get a project done in 8 hours and you didn't get it done on time, or you made an error and it wasn't done perfectly, you may be expected to stay and complete that work correctly before you're allowed to, quote unquote, allowed to leave. So we see financial and time punishments used as well. We need to ask ourselves, Personally, I'm not the type of person that believes in punishing errors. If you take class with me, you know I don't make you do burpees if you're late to CrossFit. If you mess up on billing, we try to get to the root cause of why that was messed up and correct it. We don't dock your pay or anything like that, because we need to step back and ask ourselves, does punishing somebody for this error, does it correct the outcome of the error? The answer to that question is always no. And does it help that person learn why they made the error, how to change their system or processes to reduce the likelihood or the magnitude of those errors in the future? And if you really step back and ask yourself that question, if you say, how big of a deal was this error? Did somebody come to physical or financial harm? And then if I punish this person, is it going to fix the outcome of that error? Is it going to help them learn why they made the error or make them less likely to perform the error in the future? The answer to those questions is almost universally no. So then why do we do it? Why do we do it, right? And we come to this concept of leader-follower versus leader-leader relationships at the end result of that. Of I'm in charge, you messed up, I'm the leader, you're the follower. Something has to be done here. We were in a leader-follower relationship, and I must institute and I must enforce that I'm the leader and you're the follower, and I won't tolerate the errors that you've made. And I couldn't disagree more with that style of leadership. And that's really what the book Turn the Ship Around is about changing the dynamic of that relationship. So when we consider why do errors happen, first of all, we need to acknowledge extreme ownership. Again, another book I recommend by Jocko Willink also happens to be a Navy guy, Navy SEAL, that at the end of the day, anything that goes wrong in our life, in our business, if we're the leader of the business, the owner or not, even if we're just somebody working in the business, every error caused, every mess up is ultimately our fault. It is also the fault of all the people in the chain of command, up the chain of command. We have to acknowledge, yes, we made a mistake, but that's only step one. A lot of people stop there. They say, yes, we've made a mistake here. We'll try not to let it happen again. It's really passive. It doesn't really go anywhere. It's kind of a non-answer. When really step one is just the beginning. Recognize the error, accept responsibility. The person committing the error should accept responsibility, and all the people above them also need to accept responsibility because they are ultimately responsible for every single thing that happens in that business. Step two is stepping back and saying, why did this happen? What led to this error being caused? Was it a lack of knowledge of what to do on the job of the person doing the work? Was it a lack of resources, time or financial? And then step three, the most important step, is what are we going to do? What can we do? What sort of systems or processes can we implement that's going to make it less likely to commit this error in the future? Can we change anything? Can we change how we're doing this thing? Can we post a reminder? Can we have frequent communication? Can we do text message reminders? Can we meet more? What can we do to really wrap our heads around why this error happened and trying to reduce the likelihood that it happened in the future? Now, that's tough work. That takes time. That takes commitment. That takes more time and commitment and energy than most leaders want to spend, which is why most leaders default to just punishing errors, docking somebody's pay, making them work late, making them do burpees. Those are the lazy cop-out responses to errors instead of the hard work. Why did this happen? Is it something wrong with me as the leader? Did I miscommunicate something? Did I not make my intentions or standards clear? Are systems set up that I understand that you don't understand as the person working underneath me? That's usually the cause. It makes sense in my brain. I created it. Why doesn't it make sense to you? Because your brain is not my brain. And that can be really tough for a leader to understand. So changing those systems is arguably the most important part to reducing the likelihood of future errors. The fourth point I want to make is that errors are much less likely to happen when communication is open and frequent. I'm of the mindset that you really can't communicate too much. I do think you can have too many meetings. I do think if you meet every day about stuff, it can be overwhelming. But I think frequent touch points, frequent open communication, an open door policy where anybody in the organization can contact the leadership about questions, about concerns, and a frequent flowing both ways of information really goes a long way to reducing those error issues. Constant communication really promotes a proactive style of leadership where errors are caught before they can even happen, thus reducing the likelihood without really any damage to the organization, to the end user or the customer, versus a reactive style of leadership. Somebody that just expects everything to be done how they want it, maybe even if they've never laid out those expectations, and then punishes people when those expectations are not met. The people doing the work don't learn why something went wrong or how to fix it. They're just being punished. And over time, that just creates resentment. The end result is that nothing in the organization changes. Workers are not happy, and usually customers are not happy. And it leads to overall a really lackluster work culture for everybody involved. So being a proactive, frequent communicator versus being a reactive leader. This is a really good example from the book of the submarine captain. Before he took over, the role of the submarine captain on a ship used to be to know every system, every piece of technology, everything on the ship went through the captain first, and then he disseminated orders to everybody. Versus a bottoms-up style, a proactive, open communication style, where each individual person at their station is the expertise master and then feeds information to the captain, who maybe gives approval or who doesn't, who trusts the person there to do the job, and then come afterwards for feedback. If an error happens, let's talk about why that happened and let's fix it, versus sitting there waiting for stuff to go wrong and then punishing stuff for going wrong. What happens in that mindset, in that culture, is that people just do what they need to do to avoid making errors, because errors get them in trouble and they don't want to be in trouble. So they just do whatever they need to do. They do the bare minimum. They learn basically how to cheat and game the system to not get yelled at by you, to not have you make them do burpees, to not get their pay docked, instead of learning how to operate and be more successful in the business and overall make it a more effective machine as it's running. My last step, circling back all the way to the development of leader-leader relationships, picking up from the last point of empowering those people underneath you, understanding that the person who does this job, you hired them for a reason. As Jeff Moore, our CEO, would say, hire somebody that's passionate about what they're doing, that's a subject matter expert in what they're doing, that has the expertise in what they're doing, and then get out of their way. Recognize that in that area, they have expertise that you do not. That's ideally why you hired them. That's why you're paying them. Let them run with whatever they're doing. Get out of their way. Start to develop leader-leader relationships where we acknowledge that it's not one person in charge above a bunch of other people. It's a bunch of individuals in charge of their own subject matter areas that communicate frequently with each other and up a chain of command, creating a really proactive, positive relationship where errors become less frequent, and when they do happen, they're not punished. The concept of error positivity coming full circle. We really practice here at ICE. On a day-to-day basis, Jeff Moore does not tell me what to do. Jeff really, I think if you put a gun to his head, would tell you he doesn't really know what I do, just that whatever I do makes the company run. I would not work here if Jeff called me every day and wanted to know what I was doing. I would not work here if Jeff wanted me to be on a Zoom call live all day so he could see what I was doing and make sure that I was working 100% of the time. I would not be here if Jeff Moore called me when I made a typo in an email and screamed at me. I would not last very long here. I can't stand that style of leadership. So if that's the environment that you're in, if you're able to change it, change it. If you're not able to change it, start looking elsewhere. That's a really toxic working environment. It should always be a positive place where errors are acknowledged is somewhat unavoidable. We recognize the errors as they happen. We ask, why did they happen? And then we ask, what can we do to make sure that they happen less frequently or not at all in the future? And really the end result is the creation of that leader-leader relationship where folks in their own subject matter area of expertise simply communicate information between each other and between the leadership and other leaders. I love the example from the book. Captain Marquette now has his crew on his submarine. They do not ask permission from their leaders. Hey, can I do this? Or what are your orders? They say, I intend to do this based on X, Y, and Z. And they give justification for their actions based on their data, based on their experience, based on their expertise. And the leader says, great, go for it. There is no leader-follower relationship anymore. It is a series of leader-leader interactions on Navy submarines, which I think is amazing. I highly encourage you to read this book. Captain Marquette basically took a bunch of deadbeats on a submarine, a bunch of people who were just so distraught with the way the military was run, who were so tired of being yelled at and held back from promotions and having their pay docked for making errors, that the majority of the people on the submarine he took over were getting ready to not renew their contract. They're getting ready to get out of the Navy. And these are folks who have had hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars of training on nuclear submarine technology and how to run a submarine and nuclear physics. And the Navy was literally just going to watch them all walk out the door because of this leader-follower relationship and because of how heavy errors used to be punished before the development of error positivity and leader-leader relationships. So when we have this leader-leader relationship, when we have an environment of error positivity, it's a much better place to work, a much more effective place to work, and we don't lose all that money to attrition. We know that's one of the biggest costs in running a business is attrition. Losing somebody you spent a bunch of money and time mentoring, of paying to work there for many, many years and getting experience, and watching them walk out the door is one of the biggest mistakes you can make as somebody who's in a leadership position. So we have to avoid that at all costs. So recapping here, turn the ship around, right? Recognize that errors happen. Most errors are not a big deal. Most errors do not result in somebody coming to physical or financial harm. Most errors might be so small that they don't even need to be acknowledged. If they do need to be acknowledged, acknowledge them, accept responsibility, and then step back, do the tough work. Why did this happen? Is it my fault as the leader? Is it your fault as the junior leader? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter whose fault it is. It's both of our faults. We need to come and realize, why did it happen and how can we fix it so it happens less likely in the future? We need to develop extreme ownership. We do need to acknowledge those errors, but we need to also figure out why it happened and how to fix it. We need to develop open, consistent communication. Most of us could probably benefit from meeting more frequently with folks in our work environment, or otherwise communicating more frequently, versus a reactive style of leadership that waits for issues to happen and then punishes them. And then finally, starting to develop leader-leader relationships versus leader-follower relationships. Trust the people that you've hired, empower them as junior leaders, let them make their own decisions. They don't have to run everything by you for permission. You'll see that errors go down. And if they do come up, it's not that big of a deal. We already know the process. Why did it happen? Let's change that system. Let's make sure we understand this subject matter knowledge a little bit better. Whatever the issue is, clean that issue up, reduce the likelihood of errors in the future, instead of just punishing errors over and over again until people quit and go get a different job, or maybe leave the profession of physical therapy or nuclear physics entirely. So turn the ship around, error positivity. I hope you have a fantastic Thursday. I'd love to hear some discussion on this. If you're going to be at a course this weekend, if you're going to be out in Bozeman with Mark and Lindsay for extremity management, have a great time. Or if you're going to be down in Frederick, Maryland with Paul for dry needling this weekend, have a wonderful weekend. Have fun Halloween weekend. Go blue on Saturday. Go blue. Have a great weekend. Bye, everybody.